Good morning, gentlemen. I'm going to talk to you about a very important topic, and that is the Indian aircraft industry. I don't want to make it a long video, but at the same time, I'll bring out the salient facts here. सब पहली चीज़ याद रखिए the aircraft factory was set up in 1940 and the pioneer was Seth WalChand and he along with the Maharaj of Mysore set up this Hindustan Aeronautical Factory in Bangalore. This was the beginning, and in 41, the government of India took a stake in this aircraft factory. Now, during the war years, this aircraft factory really blossomed. It began to manufacture the Vultee, one of the P-31 American fighters, and also it was servicing the C-47, that is a prototype version of the Dakota DC-3, which was being used to fly over the hump, as a supply chain to Chinese National Army fighting the Japanese. This was because आप जानते हो कि the Burma Road जो थी, that had been closed by the Japanese after they had occupied Burma. Well, things continued, and in 1947 India got free, and that is the time I think the Pandit Nehru and the Indian government started taking a bigger interest in this, and in due course the factory was nationalized. It became a national asset. In 1950, I think, or 51, the engine division was also set up because it was to assemble the Orpheus engine from England. Things moving smoothly at that time till 56, when Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru gave the sanction to manufacture a fighter plane in India. And this was something historic because the first time the Indians were going to manufacture a fighter plane, a jet fighter plane, which would be made outside the developed countries. And it was the first country in Asia to make this plane. So the Indians were able to rope in Dr. Kurt Tank, who was the advisor at that time, the chief of Focke-Wulf during Hitler's Germany, and he came to India and set up the design team, and they began to manufacture the plane. Very shortly the plane came up, and that was the HF-24, the Hindustan Fighter 24. It was an excellent plane with a wonderful body frame, but that was all. The plane did not have a proper engine, and that was the thing which was bugging. The advanced engines which were there with the RAF and the Americans were not given to India, and so the Indians had to go in for a substandard, rather a lower powered Rolls-Royce engine which was fitted into the plane, and the net result was that the plane was good in parts. It couldn't cross Mach 1, and at the maximum in a shallow drive achieved a speed of 0.98 Mach. So that's a very low speed. It was not a very good fighter in that aspect, but very reliable plane. And at the moment, I think two planes only are left. One is in the Delhi Museum, Air Force Museum, and the other is at the residence of Dr. Trent, Bavaria. It is in the museum there. The plane, I think, continued for about 20 years, and 78 was phased out. There were only two squadrons of this plane, and the Air Force was not very happy with it because of the plane being underpowered. Otherwise, it was a very reliable plane. Then came the MiG-21, and the HAL began to manufacture the MiG-21 fighter. That was again, because the Indians didn't get the Lightning and the F-104 from the Western powers. So the Russians decided to give India this plane, and this allowed India to manufacture this plane under license here. So that was a good thing and a feather in the cap of the Indians. But point is कि Indians ने reverse engineering नहीं सीखी. That was a big drawback. This plane was made in India for almost 50 years, half a century, but Indians could not copy a similar plane and make one of their own, like the Chinese did. ये वही जहाज बनाते रहे, and with the result, the last MiG version of this was the BIS, which was phased out, I think, just month back, and it served the Air Force for a long, long period. And it's a very sad story, that of the MiG-21 कि Indians could not make a similar plane, हालांकि वो जहाज इंडिया में 60 साल के लिए बन रहा था. Of course, it was a very difficult plane to fly. I have a long association with this plane, but it was one of the best and the greatest fighters of the Second World War, and obviously, after the Second World War. But एक बात याद रखिए, this plane actually required a lot of technical skill. And another point was that the plane had become obsolete during the last 25 years. I think after 2000, no other country was using the MiG-21 except the Indian Air Force. And naturally, when you're driving such an old plane, there were a lot of accidents, I think 600 to 700 of them. And more than, I think, 300 to 400 pilots may have lost their life, which is very sad. And the entire blame is on the air staff, that is the chief of the Air Force, and the government, which never got another plane, and they continued with this old plane. Now, HAL was making this plane, but HAL was also assembling the Jaguar. I'll tell you something about the Jaguar. When I was doing the staff college, I had gone to Jaguar's HAL factory for a study tour, and we were told very proudly by the chief designer, भाई हम यहाँ इंडिया में 92% पार्ट बनाते हैं. That's very nice, I said. But what about those 8%? उनका क्या होगा? If they don't come. So he said, if those 8% don't come, the aircraft don't fly. So you can well imagine what sort of Atam Nirbhar you can take it is. India was not able to make any plane of their own. And the Jaguar was being assembled here in India. India should have easily copied the plane by reverse engineering, पर ये टेक्नोलॉजी नहीं थी और ना ही डेवलप करना चाहते थे. Net result was HAL was just, as you say, passing the buck. There was nothing significant being done by HAL. They could have done a lot more, considering that the plane, the factory has been in existence since 1940. It's about time, almost 85 years. And it's one of the oldest factories in Asia, rather the oldest factory as far as Asia is concerned. The Chinese aviation industry came almost 2 decades after that. Now, coming down to this HAL, they were given the task to manufacture the Tejas. Now, here again the same problem came with the HF-24, like in the HF-24. The HAL could not have the engine, and the plane was again made. It's a very good plane again, good airframe. It's a Mach 2 plane, and at the same time it is a 4th generation fighter. But the problem is that this plane doesn't have an engine, and the engine was contracted from General Electric in America, and they haven't given the engine at all. And I think just a few of the planes are flying. जब तक engine नहीं आता, we don't have an engine, and that is the crux of the whole issue. Again, the same thing. Engines could have been also made in India. Reverse engineering करके MiG के engine थे हमारे पास, and we were everything, but कुछ नहीं किया. Unfortunately, it's very sad that the entire Indian state of affairs was only one thing, and to buy the weapons. ये थी. The defense ministry wanted, including the political leadership, wanted कि weapons खरीदो. What is the advantage? कि जब Americans आप खरीदेंगे, तो there will be cut back and there will be a lot of money going in the pockets. That's the only reason I can think of. And this continued from the time of Nehru, and I think the Indian genius was lacking. It's a very sad story, but the Chinese were able to do so many things more. And now China has produced a 6th generation fighter, the Chengdu, and India का fighter कहाँ है? ये भी drawing board पे ही है, and it's supposed to be ready only by 2036. So India is decades behind the technology of the Russians, the Americans, and the Chinese. And at one time in 1940, India was on a par when the Vultee and the Curtiss Hawk were being made in India. They were good fighters with the American Air Force. So, gentlemen, ये बहुत ही अफसोसजनक बात है कि India should be so backward in everything, and even in the aircraft industry, we should be so backward as it is we are now. That, unfortunately, gentlemen, is the crux of the issue. That is a lack of genius and a lack of initiative. That is also very important. And the political leadership just believing in one thing, and that is making some bucks here and there. I don't know what's going to happen now to the aviation industry. Though India had a head start, they are on a low start now. And as you all know, things are not very happy I hope, gentlemen, you like this video. Please share it to your friends, and I look forward to your subscribing to my channel. In the meanwhile, I think it's about time to say goodbye. I brought all the points of HAL. HAL is just a big dud at the moment, and something is better expected. Goodbye, folks, and look after yourself. And I will say once more, what do I say now? Jai Hind, yes, glory to India. Bye bye.